The idea of adapting a short story into a full-length feature film is kind of interesting. Filmmakers are given a minuscule amount of material to work with, and yet they have to somehow turn that into a movie. They have to come up with all of the inner details by themselves. But when you think about it, coming up with something from what is basically an idea is what filmmakers do all the time. When filmmakers get a simple short story, they have to ask themselves, what can I do with this? How can I flesh this out into a film? What should I change? Should I even change anything? Or do I change everything? It's hard to know whether or not a movie adaptation can do a short story justice. But even if it doesn't, is that movie still worth your time? Is it even worth remembering? Did it even deserve a chance to be on the big screen? Or did it deserve to be forgotten? Let's keep these questions in our heads as we take a look at this 2007 children's film, also based on a short story. The Last Mimsy is loosely based off the short story Mimsy Were the Borogoves. The film opens with a scientist from the future who sends a box of objects back in time where they are discovered by two siblings named Noah and Emma. And among these objects is a stuffed rabbit named Mimsy. As the kids continue to interact with the objects, strange phenomena start affecting them. They become more attuned with nature, develop strange abilities, and Emma starts developing a telepathic bond with Mimsy. Over time, these changes get the attention of their parents, played by Julie Richardson and Timothy Hutton, as well as Noah's teacher, played by Rainn Wilson from The Office. However, soon enough the FBI gets involved, right around the time when the kids figure out what the objects are for. And to make matters worse, Mimsy needs to go back to the future in order to save it, and this is all starting to sound familiar. Okay, with that being said, I don't really think this is a carbon copy of E.T. For example, E.T. mostly focuses on the alien, while this film, Mimsy doesn't really get much focus. Instead, most of the focus is on the two kids and how the objects affect their lives. And while the film does focus on other plot threads, I feel like the main aspect that holds the film together is the characters. When we first meet the kids, we get a hold of their personalities. Emma cares so much for life that when she realizes what hamburgers are made of, she spits it out, while Noah thinks he is not good enough for the world. However, he plays it off as if he doesn't care, but in reality, he does care. He closes himself off from his family and friends because he believes he doesn't matter. So it is interesting to see how these objects change the kids' lives for the better. Emma still keeps her childlike innocence, but thanks to her bond with Mimsy, her wonder and compassion get amplified tenfold. She even starts developing supernatural abilities. And in the meantime, Noah starts to realize that maybe he's not completely worthless after all. He even starts becoming more compassionate toward his sister. As the children go through these strange changes, their parents obviously become worried about them. And while I believe the main focus is not on the parents, they are given just enough focus where I believe that their presence is warranted. The father cares for his children, but isn't really around often because of his work. But he tries to make the most of what he can, while the mother is around all the time and tries her best to care for them both. And while they are happy that the kids are becoming better people, they become worried once the more strange and unexplainable events start happening. In fact, there's a scene where they take their kids to get their brains scanned. The parents don't really know about the objects and probably don't even understand them as shown in this scene. And if you think about it, if your children start showing abilities and changes that you don't really understand, wouldn't you be worried too? You would still love your children, but you would also kind of be scared for them. But in the end, you would still want what's best for them. Now, while I do feel that the focus of the film is the children, there are moments when the movie tends to focus on the teacher. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like this character. He has a lot of energy, and it feels like he actually cares for his students. He kind of reminds me of the teachers I used to have. He also kind of reminds me of myself. Anyway, while the focus on him does kind of come out of nowhere, I honestly don't really mind. Not only because he's entertaining, but the film also shows us that he does play an important part in the story, even if he isn't the main focus. We are shown that he constantly has dreams which he believes might tell the future. And he gets involved in these circumstances when he notices a symbol that Noah drew also appeared in his dream. He and his fiancée constantly visit the kid's parents and discuss about the events that's happening. I like the conversations between the teacher and the parents, and I understand that some people can find them tedious. I believe that it shows how much they all care for the kids. Another thing I like about this film is the atmosphere. The establishing shots are very beautiful, and I really like this soundtrack. It has a good sense of wonder to it. There is one scene in the movie that really sticks out to me, and that is the scene when the kids use the seashell. This is a great example of the film's amazing atmosphere and cinematography. When the kids use it, they suddenly gain the ability to hear everything. In this moment, there is no dialogue. Instead, it just uses the cinematography, the sound effects, and the atmosphere to show you exactly what is going on, and it makes the audience feel like they are experiencing the event right next to them. About halfway through the film, the objects cause an event to happen which gets the government's attention. So now we have to focus on another plotline involving the head of the FBI, played by the late Michael Clarke Duncan. Now, there's nothing wrong with this character. I mean, sure, he's another government character who is suspicious of anything out of the ordinary, but the film shows that he's not a bad guy. It's his job to be skeptical about everything he doesn't know about, because it could be dangerous. However, this is when the film starts to get a bit crowded, because now the film has introduced a plotline about the government searching for whoever caused this event. But strangely, this doesn't really get as much focus as the family does. At least not until they actually meet them, which doesn't happen until around 3/4 into the movie. Then, after the realization of what is going on, it pretty much goes the E.T. route, where they have to escape the government facility with the objects and find a way to take Mimsy back to where she belongs. That being said, it is still a fun climax, and all of the plot lines and elements all tie in together at the very end. Now, I can joke about this film's flaws, like the similarities to E.T., the focus of 4 different points of view, or the logic behind the decisions of the scientists from the future. Seriously, has the future outgrown the usefulness of instruction booklets? But I don't think these issues are enough to ruin people's enjoyment of the film. The characters are good, and the soundtrack and cinematography are amazing, especially for a kids' film. So despite its flaws, I actually do recommend checking it out. Might not be the most exciting movie out there, but what it does have may surprise you. Now, to go back to the question in the beginning, does the film do justice to the short story it's based on? Well, to summarize the short story, it opens with a scientist from the future who sends a bunch of educational toys back in time, and it ends with the children vanishing, possibly ascending into a higher plane of existence. So yeah, an ending where the children disappear might not bode well for the family audience. So in the very least, I can understand the motivations of deviating from the source material. And people could also argue that the film loses the uniqueness that the short story had. Now, but that being said, if you enjoy the film despite it deviating from the source material, then does it even matter? In fact, the way I see it, all that matters is that you have a great and memorable experience when watching a movie. And this is one experience that I personally will never forget. This has been the Red Shirt Reviewer reporting from the Sci-Fi Station. Thanks for watching.